All right, I'm going to introduce myself, though. For those of you who are somehow not in our Facebook group, I'm that very vocal guy. I'm one of the co-founders of Mediavine, Eric. Thanks, Dennis. Definitely not the real boss around here. The reason you can tell is because they gave me a very technical, boring presentation to do right after lunch, so please bear with me and try to stay awake. I'm a computer engineer by training, and I'm talking about an extremely complex problem, so I'm going to do my best to translate to human. But if I get anything confusing, just stop me. Don't fall asleep. All right. So today's topic is going to be optimizing page speed, and in particular for Google. So no one's ever given a page speed presentation without giving the obligatory why slide. So why do we need page speed? Why is it so important? I'm sure you're all thinking it's just for that third bullet point, but we really think it's actually for the first two, and that's for your users and for your revenue. And the reason why page speed is so important for your users, there's a ton of studies out here, but forget all those. Just think about when you load up a page on your phone. How many times you hit back if it seems like it's taking forever to load? And that's honestly why page speed is so important. It really comes down to 70% of your users are on mobile devices now, and if you have a slow site, they're just going to move on. You have to remember how slow internet connections are on especially even 3G connections or the rest of the world. So yeah, it really comes down to your users. And revenue-wise, your ads are competing against your page for loading. If your page is taking forever to load, your ads aren't even going to be seen by your users. You're going to have low viewability. You're going to have low engagement. And as a result, lower CPMs. So page speed really comes down to your users and to you making more money. But I feel like everyone wants to do it for Google. So yeah, it also helps with SEO. Google has been asking us to make faster pages for literally 7 years. In 2010, they announced page speed was a ranking signal. And I think most experts now agree that page speed is more important than ever. Google has doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on page speed. They've released a suite of tools. They have an entire project called the Accelerated Mobile Pages, AMP, designed entirely around making the web faster. Google cares a lot about this. If you need any more proof, just grab your phone, search for celebrity gossip. We haven't really made a change in the Hollywood gossip for years. And the one thing we did this year is I focused on getting 85% plus on Google PageSpeed Insights. We now rank number 2 for celebrity gossip, a term we haven't done in the last, 7 years the site's been around. So please, care about page speed for Google, but most importantly for your users and revenue. So just thank Google for bringing this all to our attention, because it's really important. All right, so before we can get into how you fix your page speed, we actually need to define page speed. I know this seems obvious to everyone. Page speed is how fast your page loads, but it's a little more complex and nuanced than that. So a lot of people in the past would be like, my site is slow, let me go yell at my hosting company. I'm sure Jason here from Orange Geek gets these all the time. What can you do to make my site faster? So really, you have to think in terms of as a robot and not as a user. Computers think in terms of milliseconds, microseconds, nanoseconds, not seconds. To a computer, a second is a freaking eternity. That's like hours to us. So when you go and yell at your hosting company, they're probably trying to speed up your site from like 300 milliseconds to 200 milliseconds, but that's not where the slowdown is. So after your hosting company presents the page to the web browser or to where the phone, that phone is sometimes taking up to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 seconds I've seen on people's sites to load. And we're all yelling at our hosting company for the 200 milliseconds or the 100 milliseconds. Meanwhile, we're making them wait an eternity to load the page. So it's actually that part of the page speed that we're going to focus on. And that's the client side, or when you're actually on your phone or on the website after it got the page from the server and it's starting to load. That's our page speed. And more importantly, we need to get more nuance than just that. So there's a lot of third-party tools out there. We get a ton of emails coming in with, this is my GTmetrix or my Pingdom or, some other tool I've never heard of. At the end of the day, we don't care about any of those. And I'm going to say something really controversial. You shouldn't care about them either. That's fine if you have a page speed tool you love. Continue to use it. That's wonderful. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to make your user happy and Google happy, you're going to want to focus on page speed insights. And the reason why is because PageSpeed Insights has the best definition of page speed I've ever seen. And that's optimized for the first screen view. And what I mean by this is, again, take out your phone. When you go to a page, how quickly does the first screen or the screen you're looking at load? If that takes time, then the page feels slow. If that's fast, then the page was fast to you. And you know what? By the time you finish reading that first page of content and start scrolling, the rest of the pages had a chance to load. That's why Google is obsessed with the first screen view. We're obsessed with the first screen view at Mediavine, and that's what I want you to be obsessed with. I don't care if GTmetrix yells at you for having too many redirects, or Pingdom says your page took 60 seconds to load. I care how quickly that first screen view loaded, and that's all Google cares about. That's all you should as well, and all your users do. Every single time we get into a page speed discussion with people, the response is always, but ads. Ads are ruining my site. You know what? You probably don't want to hear this from an ad management guy, but ads suck. They are ruining your site. We're sorry. But to be honest, we're doing everything we can to make them suck the least. So again, we block all video ads across the entire network. A video ad takes 200 times longer to load than a display ad. Most other networks out there make all of their money off video ads. We block them because of page speed. But again, those 200 times slower may be terrible, and the one time is terrible too. The reason why? Each ad is like a little mini website running on your page. So in addition to your page loading, now you have 1, 2, 3, however many pages loading, all with their own set of requests. They're all going to be slow, and we're sorry about that. But we do everything, again, we can. We also do things like lazy loading. So with lazy loading, with Mediavine, which is really cool, we only actually load the ads that are going to show in that first screen view when someone gets to your page. So we're actually only loading 1 or 2 ads. Everything else is as the user continues to scroll down, and that's what we want you guys to focus on too. So there may be a tool telling you your site took 60 seconds. That's because it probably scrolled all the way down for the purpose of that test. But that's not a real world speed. The part that matters is what we do and what you should experience, which is a faster first screen view. I'm going to swear I'm going to stop saying that so many times. And most importantly, I think most people here live in a capitalist society, and they're going to continue to want to get paid for their work. And therefore, we're all kind of going to need ads. So we're not killing ads anytime soon. The good news is ad exchanges are always working on ways to block the slower ads. As a network, again, every ad exchange we start to work with, we make sure they know, block all the large creatives, block flash, block in-banner video. We try. But again, the bad eggs will always sneak through. Second pitfall, it's hard. Most people just give up. They'll run a page speed test. It tells them they have to fix a bunch of stuff, and then they're done. Yeah, it's hard. And the good news is, it's hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. You wouldn't have a competitive advantage against all the other blogs out there. So you're probably going to want to hire a developer. It's an extremely complex computer problem. And you're also going to have to make a couple sacrifices. There's going to be plugins that won't ever fix themselves in the way that you need them to fix. You're going to have to fire that person unless they fix it. And if your excuse is, I can't fire that developer or I can't fire that plugin, then you're never going to have a fast site. There's nothing we can do. And image quality. I know this is particularly sensitive among a lot of people in here. People always say, what size should my images be? As small as you can make them. There's not really like a number. I can't tell you under 100 kilobytes is great, because it's not. That's actually still considered big. And a lot of people have multiple megabyte size images on their site. We're going to go into all of these in much more detail, but there are going to be sacrifices you make to image quality, to plugins you use, to theme choices you make. Page speed is not easy. All right, let's get to know our best friend, PageSpeed Insights. So it's pretty simple. You enter in a URL, click Analyze, and then it's going to spit out basically the results of 10 rules that it's going to run on both your desktop and your mobile site. Your goal is to get an 85% plus. That's going to give you a little green light when you get there, and you want to do it on both desktop and mobile. So these 10 rules are not just like a binary 0 or 1. You don't just pass or fail. There's varying degrees of success or failure, however you want to look at it. So you can fail 3 of the tests and still get an 85% plus. So don't obsess about if there's one little line item underneath one rule that you can't ever get rid of, you can still get 85%. All right, so we're going to go through each of the rules one by one. I'm going to do my best to explain them in, again, English. But again, some of these are a little complex. We're going to start with the easy one. I'm going to give myself a softball. Avoid landing page redirects. I like to make this analogous to the SAT, how they always say you get a certain score just for filling out your name correctly. If you literally put your URL correctly into the test, you're going to pass this one, assuming that you run a responsive site. And the reason why what they're testing is making sure that the URL you put in doesn't redirect the user to another URL or a 301 redirect. So chances are, if you were able to correctly enter in your address or your name, you're going to score an instant 10 points. Congratulations. And as long as you run a responsive site. In the real world, you want to make sure that any URL that Google has indexed doesn't require redirects as well. So make sure you're not running some weird sharing tool that redirects them to a different address for tracking purposes. Make sure you don't have multiple URL redirections set up. For example, when we went SSL, we made sure we redirected the root domain, the Hollywood Gossip, to HTTPS www.thehollywoodgossip in one redirect. So you don't redirect them first to HTTPS and then second to www. It's important for people that did things like removing dates from their URL. Make sure you don't redirect them multiple times. Do it as little as you can, so once Google has that indexed, you're not going to have multiple page redirects. But again, in an environment where you're typing the URL into the PageSpeed Insights tool, everyone should pass this one, or you entered your URL wrong or your name wrong. Rule number 2, this one's going to seem really complex and it's going to seem hard, but the good news is this isn't on you. This is that one that's on your hosting company. So you're going to reduce your server response time. And what that means is basically how quickly the server, when it gets a request for a web page, responds with that web page to the browser. So in the real world example I was giving at the beginning, when I was saying that computers think of things in terms of seconds or milliseconds or smaller, you actually do want your server, in this case, to respond in under 200 milliseconds, which is incredibly fast, and most servers can't actually do this. So you don't necessarily want to upgrade your hosting package to the most expensive thing that your hosting company provides you. What you want to do instead is configure a caching plugin. I'm sure a lot of you guys run those already. Make sure those are set up correctly, and I would say your hosting company would be the best person to set that up for you, or even put a CDN. Pretty much any CDN would work. I hate Cloudflare, but I know you guys all love that one. Just make sure that whatever you run in front of there is set up with what's called caching headers. So generally, there's going to be a plugin that will run on the WordPress side that sets all that for you. And that makes sure it tells a CDN, Content Delivery Network. Yeah, I realized I didn't explain what that one was. So a Content Delivery Network is a series of servers around the world, or POPs as they call them. And it basically puts a server closest to your user, and that CDN will store a static snapshot. They take a picture of your page, store it there, and then send it to your user from the closest server to them. That way you could have something like the Hollywood Gossip respond to someone in Japan in 20 milliseconds, even though our server is, I don't know, in Virginia. It doesn't matter, because that's the concept of a CDN. It's global, and it stores cached copies of your pages throughout the entire world. You definitely want a CDN, no question. But if nothing else, you need to at least make sure you have a caching plugin configured, because without those two things, if you have to have WordPress generate each page or whatever CMS you use, it's going to take too long. So CDN, caching plugin. And again, your hosting company will configure that for you. I want everyone to pass these two. Those are the two easier ones. So third one, not too bad, enable compression. I'm sure most of you have dealt with zip files in your life. You know, when you zip up a bunch of images to send them off to a person. I don't know if the world still uses that stuff, but we used to. If not, just think of it like it's taking a file that might be very large, shrinking it down using something called zipping technology. Then it gets to the other side. It was a small file. They unzip it. It makes it big. Without going into too much more technical detail, you don't have to worry about it, because this is another one of those easy ones that you can pin on someone else. Your hosting company or your CDN should be able to take care of this for you. Your hosting company will install something like Mod Deflate, or something you don't have to worry about. Just tell them, make sure I'm failing this test, make me pass it. Your CDN is literally a checkbox half the time. So I want everyone to pass these first three, because it's not even on you. Now let's get to the bad one, optimize images. And again, every image, there's no target size you want. I can't tell you if this one particular image is 40 kilobytes, you did a great job because it depends on the contents of the image, the file type it is, the dimensions of it. There's too many factors at play. So really, it's all relative. You want to run each URL through PageSpeed Insights, and it's going to yell at you for which images are too big and how Google could have done such a better job compressing them for you. We'd recommend using something like ShortPixel, which is a service. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be that exact one, but I know our own Nicole here, or whatever you do on her own personal blog, managed to score a perfect on the optimized images using ShortPixel. So I'd say start with that one. She wrote an awesome blog post on Mediavine. So check out that article, basically follow what she did, and you'll pass the images. The other thing is make sure you don't run an extremely large image that's bigger than the size of your site and have the browser shrink it down. So a lot of people put in like super 1,200 pixel wide images because they look beautiful, and then they upload it, and then they put that onto their page. And then meanwhile, the person on the other end is trying to view all of this on a much smaller window, and the computer is shrinking down the image that you used. Meanwhile, you just sent them a 1 megabyte image when you could have sent them 100 kilobyte because you sent too large. So that's another big one. Just make sure that the size of the image that you're showing is Sure. Yes, always yes. So something like ShortPixel will actually let you go through your entire archives. You'll just pay a lot of money for it. And they'll go through every image you've ever uploaded, and they'll compress them all for you. I would strongly recommend you do that. I think it's a monthly service that you buy credits for. Yep, I'm getting a nod. So I think Nicole just bought like an initial giant clump of credits to do her old ones. Then going forward, just make sure all of your new posts go through this tool. And again, it's a plugin that does it automatically for you. The other one is just make sure you use JPEGs and not PNGs for photos. PNG is made for like text and certain things because it's lossless, which means it never gets artifacts that look nasty, and we all think they look prettier, but they're terrible for photos. Yes. So anything you run through your photo editing software and save for the web is going to do a terrible job in compression. No offense to Adobe. They're not as good as like Google and these other companies that have come up with libraries that super compress these images down. Like Google and these other companies are obsessed with how small you can make that image. Adobe's obsessed with how pretty you can make it. So focus on the people that are good. So don't waste your time. Upload it. I mean, I would still save it for the web when you're exporting from your photo software, but yeah, you're going to need to use a third party. And then the final one is no GIFs, or GIFs, I don't know, controversial. No matter what, listen to the cat GIF that I ironically used here. You just can't run them. They were made in literally the 1980s by CompuServe, a thing that doesn't even exist anymore. Yeah, nobody should be running GIFs on the entire internet. I don't know how they made a resurgence. I mean, they're hilarious. We all love them. But they have no place on your site if you want to have a fast site. Sorry. We'll keep using them in internal chats with you guys on Intercom, but not on your site. You've probably heard us talk about this plugin, Auto-Optimize. I hate saying the word because it's not a real word, but Auto-Optimize, the reason why we're obsessed with it is because literally the next 5 rules we're going to talk about could all be solved by one plugin. It's not an easy plugin to configure, but if you do it right, there's 50%. And we already went over another 3 rules before this. So you'll be at 80% if you just install this plugin correctly and did those last 3. And then you only have 5% left to go. Sounds easy, but it's actually a very tough plugin to configure, anyone who's run it before. And it can definitely break stuff. So I'm not just saying blanket Auto-Optimize solves all this. We're going to go through these 5, what they mean, and kind of what Auto-Optimize is doing in the background so you understand. So before we go into all this stuff, I want to go over what the technical underlying aspects of them are. And to understand that, you need to understand what JavaScript is. So you're all running a ton of JavaScript on your sites, like a ton of it. The average site we've seen has something like, 30 to 50 JavaScript files. The Hollywood Gossip has 2. So it's definitely a problem, but it can be solved. So what JavaScript is, it's a programming language of the internet. That's what makes your sites do stuff besides just look pretty. If you want something like a sharing button, or you want an ad to render, or you want a menu bar to work, if you want anything that happens dynamically on your page besides just a link that someone clicks on, that's all JavaScript. So pretty much every plugin you've ever used, any code snippet that someone sends you to just install, that's JavaScript. And under the hood, it has the potential to do unbelievably destructive things to your site. And we all just install it because none of us know how to really look through it. Even programmers can't necessarily look through someone else's compressed JavaScript and know exactly what this thing is doing. Plus, it can change at any given moment without even telling you. So JavaScript is a very scary thing. It's a very powerful thing. And it's, probably destroying your site, but it's also probably making your site awesome. So there's some sort of balance we have to find with this. So the actual rule is we have to eliminate render blocking JavaScript, not all JavaScript. What the heck does that mean? So render blocking JavaScript really comes down to asynchronous versus synchronous. And so what we mean by this, I'm going to use a cooking metaphor. Even if everyone's not a food blogger, I feel like we've all been in our kitchen at one point. So let's say we're preparing a delicious Thanksgiving feast. If we're in the world of synchronous or render blocking JavaScript, by the way, this is all copyright Alex Roth, our programmer, trademarked whatever he did, so full credit for this metaphor to him. So let's say, again, we're making this Thanksgiving feast. 7 hours, let's say it takes to roast a turkey. I don't know, I'm not a cook. You guys tell me. So let's say it takes you 7 hours of roasting your turkey. In the world of synchronous, once you get to that point, you can do nothing else until that turkey finishes roasting. You can't work on the sides. You can't even work on your dessert. You can't work on the appetizers. You can literally do nothing until that finishes. So, or you can think of it when you have a stovetop. If you can't necessarily be boiling water and then working on something else. In the world of synchronous, you literally have to wait until that process completes before you can do something. In asynchronous, you're all over the kitchen. You have aides helping you. You're working on everything you can. And so most JavaScript, and this is going to sound weird, by default is synchronous. And that metaphor I was giving you with a 7-hour roasting turkey, that might seem like that's a ridiculous example to give. But that's actually what happens all the freaking time with synchronous JavaScript. Again, remember when I was saying that a second is an eternity to a computer? Most of the JavaScript you run, especially from third-party sharing tools, will take over a second to run. You give them one line that blocks your entire page until it finishes for 1 second, that computer hates you. That's literally like you sitting there waiting 7 hours for that turkey to finish roasting before you can work on the next thing. So it really comes down to let's make sure that everything is asynchronous. So there's actually two solutions to this. Technically, one of them is to defer JavaScript, and that's basically where you throw all of your scripts at the very bottom of your page. And what that does is allows the page to basically think of the computer as running through your HTML one line by one line. And it's able to figure out what it can render. It can make the page look like what it does from code. And if it gets to something that's synchronous, it has to stop. But the idea is if you defer it and you put it at the bottom, it doesn't stop till the very end. It's kind of like a stopgap solution. It works. Your page can render. Well, I hate it because as your ad management guy, I'm going to yell at you for doing that one. That solution still means if it stops at the very end, your ads aren't running, because you're still tying up the entire computer to run that JavaScript at the very end. So really the solution is go asynchronous. So I know I preach auto-optimize solves everything, but ironically it does defer by default. So you definitely want to work with any of your third-party tools, any of the plugins that you're running. Make sure it's asynchronous. And again, this goes back to the the beginning slides. If that person tells you, I can't make this code asynchronous, or you're running some, I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but I think we all know the badge that runs 3 lines of JavaScript on your site, all that's that's all synchronous. If they can't fix that for you, fire them. No amount of money is worth slowing down your site. And you may tell me that's not true, then I don't know. Again, you're going to have a slow site. But if you cannot fire that one tracking company, then your site will never be fast. Your ads will never perform well. Google will never start giving you more traffic. Users will hate your site, and you made a little extra money from one company. And also the incredible thing is we have power as a community to make some of these plugin developers do stuff. Let's all come together and basically work with these developers. This is being recorded, so I can't say. If someone were to guess it, I would probably nod my head. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what you just said, but it sounded very right. So we offer a third-party auditing tool at tools.mediavine.com that will kind of go through your page and list what's asynchronous versus synchronous. The easiest way to look at it is you're actually looking for, funny enough, the word async, A-S-Y-N-C. If you see that in the code that they give you, you're good to go. You can see it in the Mediavine script wrapper, for example. The other way is like Google and a bunch of people write it even fancier, and it will be very tough to read. That's also a good sign. Without knowing programming, it's very tough to explain the difference between asynchronous and synchronous code. But if you can send it to us, I could show you. CSS, style sheets. Those are the things that take your HTML and make it, instead of looking like a bunch of text, and turn it into your theme, format sidebars. That's what makes your site look like your site. And it's also the reason why the computer has no idea what your site looks like until it loads that style sheet. So if there's a style sheet that's taking forever to load, your site looks like it's taking forever to load. So similar to JavaScript, they actually don't want you to have any render blocking CSS. The problem is there's no concept of asynchronous CSS. So how does Google expect you to solve this? So some genius programmers came up with this thing called Load CSS. It's what powers Auto-Optimize under the hood, and it basically is a giant, wonderful hack that somehow, I don't know, some smarter programmers than me figured out a way to turn CSS into asynchronous. Basically, it loads the tag and then puts it in. You don't have to worry about that. Just run Auto-Optimize and say Optimize CSS. But the problem is, because it's asynchronous now, you're going to see this flash of your page before it has any formatting. So that's where we need to inline CSS. And what inlining means is rather than storing your style sheet in a separate file, it's all dumped inside of your HTML. And it looks scary, and it's massive, and it's actually not the great solution. So we're actually going to go into what is. I lied. I'm missing a slide. All right. So the great solution is basically criticalcss.com. If you guys check that out, that's a service that charges, I don't know, $2 a month. You can cancel it any time, so use it once. Cancel, trial. So basically what it does is it'll go through your page and figure out which of that CSS is essential to rendering that first screen view. And then you're just going to have to be able to grab that, and you'll put it in Auto-Optimize. And now I just remember that slide is further down the line, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically what you're going to want to do is use this hackery of Load CSS that allows your full page to load, doesn't stop until that CSS. The next three rules are all very eerily similar, so I'm going to combine them into one, and that's minifying your HTML, your CSS, and JavaScript. That's basically taking a lot of text, and think of it like if you're writing a paragraph and you had a couple extra spaces between words, or after your period you use 2 spaces like me, which is apparently incorrect, it will eliminate those extra spaces for you. That's what minifying is in the simplest of terms. With CSS and JavaScript, there's a little more complexity that goes into it. But again, this is not something you have to solve on your own. Hundreds of people have written plugins to do this. Auto-Optimize itself even does this for you if you just turn it on. Minifying is pretty non-destructive, and that's not the part that's going to break your site. And that's just 3 of the rules you can pass very easily with Auto-Optimize, just by choosing to have it minify your CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. And again, it's just stripping extra white space. It's pretty harmless and saves a lot of file size. Oh, there we go. Prioritize visible content. Clearly different than render blocking CSS. So this rule is basically everything I was talking about with that screen view. The reason why it's so important to Google, again, to have that first screen view load quickly is because that's the perceived speed of your site. So that's what they want you to prioritize. And that is what Critical CSS does for you. And again, takes a snapshot of your page, figures out what is required to load that first screen view. It's an awesome program. It's going to spit out a bunch of code, and then you're going to paste it into a spot in Auto-Optimize and have no idea what just happened. I don't even know how it's built, and you don't have to worry about it. Because again, I'll keep pointing up Nicole. Nicole, or whatever you do, food blogger like you, or a blogger like you, and not necessarily technical in nature was able to figure this out by working with their hosting company. So AutoOptimize will solve that with the power of Critical CSS and a $2 a month trial. Save the worst rule for last because you're all going to fail it. So leverage browser caching. What is that? So every time a web page is served, there's instructions with that web page. They're called HTTP headers. You don't need to worry about what they are, but basically one of those tells your web browser how long it can save that page for. If you say you can save this page for a day, then your web browser will save it for a day, and if you go back to that page, it won't try to reload it because it's cached on your computer. You use that a lot for images, so you can say, like, this image is never going to change. This image is here for a lifetime, and therefore your computer won't have to keep reloading all the same stuff. It's really important for, like, let's say you're the logo on your site. You want to say this logo lasts forever, so when someone goes to a second page on your site, it's already loaded. It doesn't have to reload again. So that's what browser caching is and leverage browser caching. They want you to set all these headers. Now, the reason you're going to fail this one is because Google's own analytics and ad server DFP don't set these headers. So no matter what, if you run ads or you run analytics, you're going to fail it. So don't obsess too much over this rule. There's a bunch of obvious ones. Let's fix it. A lot of them are our fault. Not necessarily ours, but third-party advertisements. So if there's things we can solve, let's try to solve them together. But you're going to have a failure on this one. You will never get 10 out of 10. I don't think anyone on the web will ever get 10 out of 10 because I'm sure you may have noticed this. Google is a pretty popular company. Their analytics suite is used by all of us, and pretty much all of us use their ad server. So Google's own products are ironically making page speed insights fail. And again, ads. Ads suck, sorry. All right, we know that didn't solve everything for you, and that wasn't the idea. And again, all of this is going to be recorded by our videographer. It's all going to go up on the blog, and we're even going to write a series of blog posts, just like Nicole did with the images. I'm going to work on expanding our auto-optimize one on Load CSS, one on criticalcss.com. We're going to try to explain all this through easy-to-digest posts. At the end of the day, though, we can't do this for you. I know that wants to be everyone's response. Eric, go make my page fast. Even if there were only one of you, we couldn't necessarily do this for you because it's your site. Once you take it back over from us, you're going to break it. And the reason why is because you're going to install another plugin. You're going to install another script. You're going to write another blog post. This is not a one-time operation. This is something you have to maintain. And so every time you write a new blog post, just make sure you run it through PageSpeed Insights. They even have a Chrome extension so it can automatically run this for you. This is an ongoing process. PageSpeed is not easy, but again, Google search traffic will thank you, your users will thank you, and I promise you, your revenue will thank you. That's all I have, so I was hoping we'd have a lot of questions.
I use a plugin called Better Delete Revision. Is it important to delete, like if you revise a blog post, you've got these backup copies on your site, is it good to get rid of those?
So that's going to be on the server side. So again, what I was saying at the very beginning is your server is probably going to be too slow for Google standards no matter what you do, whether you clean up all your old posts, whether you run optimized database, or whatever the heck plugins are that are out there. I'm not a WordPress guy, if you can't tell. So no matter what you do, your hosting company is going to be too slow for Google standards. So again, you're going to need to put up that caching plugin in front of it so that the first time a user accesses it, it generates the page. The second time, it pulls it from that cache. So no matter how slow your server is, it'll serve instantly on the second view. So that won't, I wouldn't focus too much on what you can do to improve your server. Let your hosting guys do that. Gretchen.
You talk some about auto-optimize and how important it is, and I've seen lots of great tutorials and posts come from you guys. Would we run into an instance where we would need to delete the cache that auto-optimize is saving for us? And if so, how often should we expect to see that little red warning that says it's getting close to being full?
Great question. I wish we had Frank, the author, here. You should never see that cache warning. If you did that, something's configured incorrectly. And what that generally means is somewhere inside your page, there's changing JavaScript. So that means one post to the next post have different JavaScript for the page, so it can't be stored in cache. So that's generally inline JavaScript, which for the programmers out there, I don't even know if we have any in this room, that makes all of us shudder. That's a bad style of programming. You should never have inline JavaScript. WordPress plugin developers are not known to be the best programmers, so they love to use it. And that's basically what's causing the cache to get bloated. It's because each page isn't able to store the exact same cache inside of Optimize. So if you see that happening, we should probably write up a whole blog post on just how to detect that.
So you had commented the first page of our blog. Is that our home page, or is that when somebody's typing in ultimate brownie recipe and they come to my blog / ultimate brownie recipe?
Great question. Okay, so we want to optimize not just your home page, but definitely individual post pages, because Google looks at every page differently when it's measuring your page speed. So it wants to know the page speed of that individual post. So you actually want to run both your home page and your individual page through this page speed tool. But again, when I meant by first page, I meant that first screen view. Is that what you're referring to? Okay, yeah, into that tool. Then again, you want to test multiple individual articles in addition to the homepage. So make sure your homepage is fast, but more importantly, make sure individual articles are fast, because Google sends most of its traffic, I'm guessing, to your individual articles and not to your homepage. Vanity-wise, we all love our homepage, and I love to brag about our celebrity gossip ranking. That doesn't really matter. What matters is that my co-founders over here will probably laugh, but like Kim Kardashian pregnant, or they would know celebrity gossip way better than me. What matters are the individual blog posts on the Hollywood gossip. So that's where we obsess with our ranking, because that's where Google sends its traffic to. It's the same thing for your blog. So focus on the individual articles.
You mentioned earlier on it is best to hire a developer to help. Do you guys think in the future you could give us a list of developers that you could recommend?
I think I'd like to work with certain developers that are even in this room to kind of like certify them almost to do this. But yeah, right now we're really hesitant to recommend developers just because, well, then it becomes our fault when they break stuff. But yeah, that's a good dream. All right, we'll solve the internet, I know. Anyone else? All right, what else? Oh,
Okay. So I think like a lot of people, I went from a .blogspot to a .com, then to dropping dates, then moved to WordPress, then combined a different blog into my first blog.
okay.
So I have a crap ton of redirects.
Yep.
How is there? What can I do? And now Yoast is like, hey, this is sucky. Rename it. So
Add one more.
exactly. So how many redirects, or how screwed am I, or how?
Well, this is definitely not the SEO talk, so I'll let.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. So hopefully, I believe that's been rescheduled to tomorrow. So I'll let you ask how many redirects is a problem to Josh. I definitely would say any more than one from a page speed perspective is a problem, because that's what Google says. So make sure you're only doing one. And a lot of that stuff is impossible, correct, to do in one redirect. But maybe your hosting company or your developer is very clever and can set up a good set of rewrite rules for you to do it in one.
It's over time.
Right. But they're all, somewhere those redirects exist, and they're each in a line. You could combine a lot of them into one redirect. So if someone typed in your old .blogspot with a date URL on your old, no, I guess not on your old domain, but make sure that that would redirect directly to your new domain, already removing the dates from that URL. So it's in one step, that it does all the redirects in one. Yeah, I mean, you can't have more than one. You're not even supposed to have one, is basically what that test is saying. So eliminate as many as you can. And from an SEO perspective, I can tell you Google is not a big fan of you sending them through a loop. And the reason why is because every single time they have to do a redirect, they have to go to your server, come back, go to your server, come back, go to your server, come back. Don't make Google spend a lot of computer resources on your site, or they're going to spend them somewhere else.
Okay, I have a question. My friend Marion and I disagree on this, and she doesn't even know I'm going to throw her under the bus. But I hear so much about removing the dates from our URL and those redirects. Can you please convince me not to do it?
I'm bleeding into so much SEO right now. I personally do not believe in redirects from an SEO standpoint, just because, again, it all comes down to I like to make things as easy for Google as possible, and Google don't give no craps about dates in your URL. I'm going to steal Josh's line. He always says, like, look at YouTube URLs. They're absolutely awful, yet YouTube ranks really well. You look at Amazon URLs, again, awful, rank really well. Google does not care that much. And I get it. There's a lot of SEOs that are going to call me a big fat liar, and they've seen studies if you remove dates, the traffic goes up. Again, the Hollywood Gossip has had dates since its beginning, and it does pretty damn well.
Okay.
So don't do it.
In Google Analytics, there's a spot and it gives page speed. So actually, I've been bugging Amber the last couple days, so my apologies to Amber. But is there a minimum or maximum amount of seconds that we should be looking for? Like, is there a standard or?
So again, Google Analytics, and again, I understand it's a Google property, is not the best speed metric. So whenever Google does publish, and they rarely do, and I can send a link to people after this, whenever they publish, like, this is what you should be doing for page speed, they use exactly two examples, PageSpeed Insights and webpagetest.org. They've never even used their own Google Analytics. And the problem is, again, Google Analytics is looking for how long did that full page take to load. And there could be any number of things that are causing that to take forever. You could have a video on that page that maybe the user sits there and watches the whole thing, and therefore it took 60 seconds to load. You can have that ad all the way in the footer that, again, Mediavine would never have loaded when you first got to that page, and if they scroll all the way down, now it took a full 60 seconds for that page to load. So it's not really that useful of a metric because it's not measuring the correct thing.
So what you said before, then we should be looking for that 85% or above, not so much the amount of seconds?
Right. I would say if you have an 85% or plus in PageSpeed Insights, you're just going to have a fast site, and you'll probably pass all the other tools in the metrics that matter. So again, you could even run PageSpeed Insight, the webpagetest.org, and that has two different results. It has something called visually complete, how long until your entire page is loaded, and that's probably going to be 17 seconds because, again, it scrolls all the way down to the bottom. Then they have the thing called your page speed score, I believe it's called in there. I can't remember the exact name of theirs. And you have a goal of trying to get that under a certain amount of time, and that's what's measuring the video of how long your first screen view takes. Again, that's the one that matters. But tools all have all different names for this stuff, which is why I say forget about all of them. Okay. The reason I love PageSpeed Insights, it's not the most technical of the tools, it's probably not the most involved of the tools, but it's measuring the one thing that matters most, and that's all it cares about. That's all Google cares about. That's all users care about. First screen view.
Okay, thank you.
Got one all the way in the back.
In the front? Which way? Whose hand is up? Oh, sorry. I didn't know it was that far back. Sorry.
Okay, so, hi, I could probably just be, anyway. I did a content audit where I got rid of a bunch of old posts that, like Wordless Wednesday from 1974 or whatever. So I deleted them, and I was told to do a redirect on all of those URLs. So is that only a problem like if somebody's actually trying to go to that URL, or did I shoot myself in the foot, or?
Well, again, this will come down to I don't want to bleed into SEO, but I don't love that strategy really ever, deleting old content. But if you did delete it, it's over, it's done, you've deleted it. The redirect is not a problem, it just means you're not going to get a great PageSpeed Insights score on those old deleted URLs, but you probably weren't ranking on them anyway. So yeah, you're fine from a page speed perspective.
Okay, so I do try to stay on top of my page speeds, and I think I've used PageSpeed Insight. The last time I was really puzzled because I've done a lot of things to speed it up, and I got an 85%, which I guess is fine, but I failed completely on redirects, and they weren't any of my own, and it said it was it could be related to your ad server. So do you hear? And I'm small. I don't have the numbers for media buying yet, and that's on my year's goals. And I've been toying with the idea of just it's gourmet ads, taking it off, because it's not meaningful income for me anyway, really. But is it possible to get an 85% and completely fail on redirects? Because I got an F. It was at the very top, great big F.
Okay, if you're getting a letter grade, that means you're not using PageSpeed Insights with whatever told you that. That was
Okay.
probably GT Metrics.
Okay, that might be it.
Yeah, and Gourmet Ads is weirdly probably the only company out there that doesn't use Google DFP as their ad server. I know they use AppNexus, and that probably makes you fail too. I would not stress about redirects. Again, PageSpeed Insights cares about the landing page redirects, or the URL you're putting in there. No matter what you do, advertisements all rely on redirects. That's how they track. So that's how they track individual users. So you're always going to have redirects if you're running ads. And again, ads suck. We all need to run ads.
Okay, so if I'm
But you
getting
can still get an
85%,
85% with them.
then that's okay. I shouldn't worry about it. Okay.
Well, I can't speak to how Gourmet Ads necessarily runs their ads, but I can tell you, Mediavine, we lazy load. So again, it is possible with us to definitely do it in the first screen view.
Hi. So I'm wondering, once we start implementing all of these changes, how quickly will we see a difference in our page rank score?
So again, when it comes down to Google, with your older content, it depends how often, with the actual just the score or the ranking?
Like, yeah, the rank, like, is it within days, is it weeks?
So the score is
How-
instant. So the
Okay.
tool will I think they cache it for like an hour. So you can make a change in, an hour
Okay.
and see a result.
Okay. I
But
was
in terms of
thinking it
actual
might have-
rankings, it might take a while before Google reindexes a page and realizes this wasn't really slow.
Okay, thank you.
Oh. One more.
In simple terms, what would be the typical process, the methodology, step one, do this, step two, this, like, where would we clean up a page, because you're going to a page,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going, it's our most popular post, and we clean up the CSS, and we clean up the size of our images, and then we do what?
All at once. So I think if you go to an individual post and you solve a lot of these problems, what you're going to realize is you're also solving it for your entire site. Because a lot of your things you run on one post, you're going to run on multiple posts, especially like your site-wide plugins and your site-wide JavaScript and CSS. So yeah, I think if you focus on an individual post, you're going to solve it all. If you want to just figure out the order because you're overwhelmed and this is too much to do in like one day, I would say I would definitely start with the images. Just because you probably don't realize how massive your images are right now. And that's not you in particular, I mean everyone here. Everyone I've ever seen has very large images that's doing blogging and doesn't have one of these plugins running. So if you have another plugin that is compressing and you're not passing PageSpeed Insights, unfortunately I'm going to say switch to one that makes you pass. And again, we know ShortPixel does. So I'd probably start with images just because that is probably the most real-world example of speeding up your site that you would notice as a user. A lot of this other stuff is, again, just for computers, and if you can speed up that first screen view by 1 second, you might not notice, but again, the computer thought that was an eternity. And the reason why, again, this is also important is because we're asking Google to go crawl the entire freaking internet. The internet's very big, and so they're going to want to concentrate on sites that they can crawl faster. You can see once you do this that your crawl rate will go up because Google will love you because you're costing them less money. Remember, every server Google has to have that crawls the internet costs them money, so they want a faster internet for that reason again, or for that reason alone. So I would say, to answer your question, start with images, then I would go with auto-optimize to start doing things for the computers. And then the rest of the I don't even remember some of them now. The first three, I would probably reach out to your hosting company because they'll be able to do that independently of you. No, you won't need to resubmit. They'll just continuously be testing. And again, think of this as every new post you ever do in the future is going to get a great ranking, and whenever they eventually come back to your old ones, they're going to realize you're fast. And over time, Google will increase the crawl rate across your entire site once they realize your entire site is fast. And that's something you can track in Google Search Console. There's a page somewhere in there that will show you your crawl rate, and you'll definitely see an increase. Anyone else? Uh-oh.
Maybe we should cover, do blocked resources slow down your site?
So blocked resources are definitely very different from page speed, but they don't. So a blocked resource is, and you probably have seen these in your web search console, that's just indicating that there's a robots.txt file. You probably have one on your site, and it tells Google what you can browse and what you can. So on your site, you probably have a robot.txt file that says, don't browse my admin, because Google's robots have no business in your admin. In the case of ads, we don't personally do this, but the third-party advertisers put a robots.txt file to purposely block robots from downloading ads. That's actually a good thing for you because the robots have no business on those ads. And so you probably will see those on your search console. It won't have a lot of real-world impact on site speed because, again, that's just for the robots of Google and the various other search engines, being very important.
Right, and just to cover that, the reason I asked that question is people log into Search Console and they see this giant number of blocked resources and they think it's a bad thing. And in terms of ads, it's actually a really good thing because you don't want Google indexing your ads.
Right. You definitely want your ads to be blocked from being crawled. All right. Oh, one more.
I think it came up before, maybe it was a Facebook group or someplace where someone had recommended it's good to do some of the long photos for some of the ads so people are scrolling. So if we want photos ideally to be under 100, I guess I'm just trying to, what's the ideal, how many photos should we have? Because if you do 50 photos under 100, that's still a lot of
Right.
photos. It's going to slow you down. So, but you want long photos for the ads, so.
Those Mediavine jerks.
Yes.
Yeah, no, the reason, again, we love long vertical photos is it keeps the user scrolling, it keeps them more engaged, it increases the performance of your sticky sidebar ad, your desktop adhesion, all your other ads. So yes, you definitely can still use vertical photos and still pass these tests. So again, everything is relative. So it's not necessarily under 100 kilobytes. If you have a very large image that's the correct dimensions that it should be, and it happens to be large, if it's run through something like Short Pixel, all Google cares about is relative to the amount of compression that could have been applied to that one image. So if that image should have been 100 kilobytes and was a megabyte, they're going to yell at you. But if it should have been 100 kilobytes and it was 100 kilobytes, they're fine with it.
What if you have 100 photos on your post? Is that going to, it's good for ads, but is that going to slow down your post or your page?
That's a lot of photos.
Well, I just,
Right.
that was an extreme.
Right.
But
I don't think it's going to be a problem if you have 5 to 6 really nice photos. And if anything, Google loves photos in general. It shows good content. And yeah, Google Images, they love images. So I would not think that having 5 to 6 is a problem. It would just be 5 to 6 uncompressed images that would be a problem.
okay, thank you.